mother.
Who do we have here?
She's from a place of abundance.
What's your name?
Tomorrow, I'll follow the tracks that brought you here and I'll take you home.
However long it takes. Give me this one gift. Promise.
She's your mother. Perfect.
I remember your face.
All of you, bring me your leaders and throw them down. You will rule with me in the splendor of a new wasteland.
I will take this girl. Otherwise...
Survive everything we take on together. Keep it. You'll need it. This place, at the end of your map of secrets. I want to help you find it.
Gentlemen, it's time! Time to take back what's rightfully ours! And party!
My mother. I want them back.
The history of the wasteland, whispered to me by Furiosa herself.
What was that?
That
Before she became the most fearless warrior of the wasteland, Furiosa's journey began with loss, survival, and revenge. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, 2024, is not just a prequel but a powerful origin story filled with brutal action and hidden details. Today on Cinema Film, we break down the movie's shocking facts, honest review, and whether it truly lives up to the legacy of Mad Max, Fury Road. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga is a 2024 post-apocalyptic action film directed and produced by George Miller, who also co-wrote the screenplay with Nicola Thuris. This movie is the fifth entry in the Mad Max franchise and is the first film in the series that does not center on the character of Max Rocketansky. Instead, it serves as both a spin-off and a prequel to Mad Max, Fury Road, 2015. Focusing on the origin story of one of the franchise's most iconic characters, Furiosa. The film stars Anya Taylor-Joy and Lila Brown, who portray Furiosa at different stages of her life, showing her growth from a young girl into a hardened survivor. Set many years before the events of Fury Road, the story follows Furiosa's life journey over more than a decade. It begins with her kidnapping from her peaceful homeland by the forces of the brutal warlord Mendes, played by Chris Hemsworth, and slowly traces her path through violence, survival, and struggle until she rises to become an imperator. Tom Burke plays Praetorian Jack, a skilled military commander who becomes Furiosa's ally and helps shape her path. Several actors from Fury Road return in supporting roles, including John Howard, Nathan Jones, and Angus Sampson, all reprising their previous characters. The film opens in a lush, green environment that feels like a hopeful and almost perfect future, but this quickly fades as the story moves into the dry, dangerous, diesel-powered wasteland that the Mad Max series is known for. George Miller originally planned to film Furiosa back-to-back with Fury Road, continuing the story without a long gap between the projects. However, the film faced many delays and spent several years in development due to various issues, including salary disputes with Warner Brothers Pictures, the studio that distributed Fury Road. Despite these challenges, many important members of the Fury Road creative team returned to work on Furiosa, helping maintain the same visual style and intense tone. These returning crew members included co-writer Nicola Thuris, producer Doug Mitchell, composer Tom Holkenborg, costume designer Jenny Bevan, and editor Margaret Sixel, who is also George Miller's wife. Filming for the movie took place in Australia and lasted from June to October 2022, with large-scale action scenes and practical effects used throughout production. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga had its world premiere at the 77th Cannes Film Festival on May 15, 2024, where it received strong attention from audiences and critics alike. The film was released in theaters in Australia on May 23, 2024, followed by its release in the United States the very next day. After its release, the movie received very positive reviews from critics, who praised its action sequences, world building, and performances. It also earned several award nominations and was named one of the top 10 films of 2024 by the National Board of Review. However, despite the strong critical reception and awards recognition, the film struggled to perform at the box office, earning around $174.4 million worldwide against a production budget of $168 million. Decades after the apocalypse, Australia has turned into a deadly radioactive wasteland where life is scarce and survival is difficult. One of the very few places left with clean water, green land, and food is the green place of many mothers. While two young girls, Furiosa and Valkyrie, are picking peaches in this peaceful land, a group of raiders known as the Rubilis discover the hidden paradise. Furiosa tries to stop them by damaging their motorcycles, but her attempt fails, and she is captured. The Rubilis take Furiosa away as a prize for their ruthless leader, Dementis, who commands the biker horde. Furiosa's mother, Mary Jabassa, immediately follows the Rubilis to their camp in a desperate attempt to save her daughter. However, Dementis tracks them down before they can escape. To give Furiosa a chance to flee, Mary stays behind and hands her a peach pit as a symbol to remember her by. Furiosa refuses to abandon her mother, and she is forced to witness a horrifying punishment. Dementis orders his lieutenant, the Octobos, to torture and crucify Mary, making Furiosa watch. Dementis, haunted by the loss of his own family, later takes Furiosa in and raises her as his adopted daughter. Before that, Furiosa tattoos a star map of the green place onto her left arm, hoping it will one day guide her back home. Chapter 2, Lessons from the Wasteland. Sometime later, Dementis leads the biker horde in an attack on the Citadel, another powerful settlement that controls water and farming resources. However, they are pushed back by the War Boys, the fanatically loyal army of the Citadel's ruler, Immortan Joe. Instead of retreating completely, Dementis uses a clever Trojan horse strategy to take control of Gastown, an oil refinery that supplies fuel to the Citadel. During peace talks, Immortan Joe officially accepts Dementis' control over Gastown. In return, Joe increases the supply of food and water to the Horde and demands the return of Furiosa along with the Horde's organic mechanic. After the agreement, Joe locks Furiosa inside a vault with his so-called wives. When Joe's son, Rictus, shows a disturbing interest in her, Furiosa secretly plans her escape. One night, Rictus breaks her out of the vault intending to assault her, but Furiosa tricks him using a wig made from her own hair and escapes into the Citadel. She disguises herself as a mute war boy and slowly rises through the ranks of Joe's forces, surviving this harsh life for more than 10 years. Chapter 3, The Stowaway. Furiosa helps construct the War Rig, a massive armored vehicle designed to transport supplies safely through the dangerous wasteland. She plans to escape by hiding aboard the rig when Immortan Joe sends his best driver, Praetorian Jack, on a supply mission. Meanwhile, the Octobos, disappointed by Dementis' cruelty and leadership, betrays the Horde and launches an aerial attack on the rig. His followers, known as the Mortifiers, slaughter the entire crew and destroy Furiosa's hidden motorcycle. Furiosa and Jack work together to defeat the attackers and survive. Furiosa then tries to steal the rig and drive back to her homeland, but Jack stops her easily. Instead of punishing her, Jack sees her strength and intelligence and offers to train her, on the condition that she helps him rebuild his crew. Chapter 4, Homeward. Over time, Furiosa becomes Jack's trusted second-in-command and earns the rank of Praetorian. A strong bond forms between them, and they plan to escape the Citadel together. Their chance comes when Immortan Joe decides to attack Gastown, which Dementis has badly mismanaged and nearly destroyed. Joe orders Furiosa and Jack to collect weapons and ammunition from the Bullet Farm, an allied mining facility. However, Dementis has already taken control of the farm and ambushes them. Furiosa and Jack barely escape, but Dementis continues to chase them. Jack is captured and dragged to his death, while Furiosa is chained and badly injured. To survive, she makes the painful choice to cut off her own injured arm, losing the tattooed star map that once pointed her home. A lone man watches from a distance as Furiosa struggles back to the Citadel. There, she works with Immortan Joe's advisor, the People Leader, to turn Dementis' plan against him. Dementis is lured into a deadly trap at the Citadel, where the war boys crush the biker horde. With no way left to return to the Green Place, Furiosa shaves her head and builds a mechanical arm to replace the one she lost. Chapter 5, Beyond Vengeance. Furiosa hunts down the fleeing Dementis across the wasteland. After a long and brutal chase, she finally captures him in the desert. Instead of killing him immediately, she imprisons Dementis in the Citadel and uses his still-living body as fertilizer to grow a peach tree using the pit her mother gave her long ago. Immortan Joe rewards Furiosa by promoting her to the rank of Imperator and giving her command of a new war rig. Later, Furiosa meets Immortan Joe's 5 breeder wives inside the same vault where she was once imprisoned. She shows them a peach grown from the tree, symbolizing hope and freedom. On the night before another dangerous supply run, the 5 wives secretly hide inside Furiosa's war rig, setting the stage for the events that will later unfold in Mad Max, Fury Road. The story of Furiosa begins in the lush, hidden oasis known as the Green Place of Many Mothers, one of the last bastions of fertility in a post-apocalyptic wasteland ravaged by resource wars and environmental collapse. Young Furiosa, played as a child by Lila Brown, lives in this verdant paradise alongside her community of Vivlini women, skilled in survival and guardianship. While picking fruit with her friend Valkyrie, Furiosa spots intruders, members of a biker horde scouting for resources. In an attempt to protect the Green Place's location, she sabotages their motorcycles, but she is captured in the process. Before being taken, she sounds a whistle alarm, alerting her mother, Mary Jo Bassa, portrayed by Charlie Fraser. Mary, a fierce Vivlini warrior, pursues the kidnappers on a high-speed chase through the dunes, accompanied initially by the Vivlini general, played by Elsa Pataky. Determined to eliminate any threat to their home, Mary goes alone, picking off horde members one by one with precise sniper shots. Furiosa is delivered to the horde's leader, Warlord Dementis, brought to life by Chris Hemsworth in a charismatic yet unhinged performance. Dementis, a theatrical tyrant with a flowing cape and a teddy bear emblem symbolizing his lost family, interrogates the captured girl, sensing she comes from a place of abundance. He adopts her as a surrogate, haunted by his own grief, but his horde's pursuit catches up during a sandstorm rescue attempt by Mary. In a heartbreaking sequence, Mary sacrifices herself to delay the horde, instructing Furiosa to flee with a peach seed as a symbol of hope. Dementis captures and tortures Mary in front of Furiosa, demanding the location of the Green Place. Furiosa remains silent, and Dementis executes her mother brutally. From this moment, Furiosa vows revenge, secretly tattooing a star map on her arm to remember the way home. As the years pass, she grows under Dementis' erratic rule, learning the ways of the wasteland while biding her time. The narrative shifts as Dementis' horde encounters the Citadel, a fortified rock formation controlled by Immortan Joe, played by Lucky Hume in a dual role that also includes Rizdale Pell. Joe, the tyrannical ruler from the previous saga, commands a cult of war boys and controls vital resources like water and Gudsalin. Dementis attempts to siege the Citadel but is repelled by Joe's forces, including his sons Rictus Erectus, Nathan Jones, and Scrotus, Josh Hellman, and advisors like the People Eater, John Howard. Undeterred, Dementis orchestrates a takeover of Gastown, a refinery outpost, by ambushing a supply convoy. This escalation forces a tense negotiation between the two warlords. Immortan Joe demands Furiosa as part of the deal, recognizing her as a full-life potential breeder for his empire. Dementis reluctantly trades her, along with his physician organic mechanic, Angus Sampson, for control over Gastown's production. Now in the Citadel, Furiosa evades Joe's plans by disguising herself as a mute mechanic and war boy, cutting her hair short and working her way up through the ranks. She contributes to building the ultimate war rig, a massive armored tanker designed for dangerous supply runs between the Citadel, Gastown, and the Bullet Farm. Furiosa catches the eye of Praetorian Jack, portrayed by Tom Burke, a seasoned road warrior and driver known for his skill and a distinctive facial scar, incorporating Burke's real cleft lip scar enhanced with makeup. Jack, commanding the rig on perilous journeys, mentors Furiosa after she proves herself in battles against traitors. Their partnership evolves into a deep bond, with Jack teaching her driving and combat techniques while sharing a mutual dream of escape from the cycle of violence. The film dedicates extensive screen time to their dynamic, highlighted in the epic stowaway sequence of 15-minute, 78-day filmed action set piece involving nearly 200 stunt performers attacking the rig from paragliders led by the rogue octoboss, Goran Deklet. As tensions rise due to Dementis' mismanagement of Gastown, leading to shortages and unrest, Immortan Joe plans retaliation. Furiosa and Jack are sent to the Bullet Farm for ammunition, only to walk into Dementis' ambush after he seizes the facility. A brutal chase ensues, with Dementis capturing Jack and subjecting him to a horrific death by dragging. Furiosa, chained and injured, severs her own arm to escape, losing her star map tattoo in the process but gaining unbreakable resolve. Returning to the Citadel, Furiosa collaborates with Joe's forces to outmaneuver Dementis, luring his horde into a trap. In the climactic confrontation, Furiosa pursues and subdues Dementis in the dunes. Rather than immediate death, she subjects him to a prolonged fate, planting the peach seed from her mother and using his body as living fertilizer for a tree that eventually bears fruit, a poetic act of vengeance and renewal. Furiosa rises to the rank of Imperator, shaving her head, crafting a mechanical prosthetic arm, and taking command of a new war rig. The film bridges directly to the events of the prior saga by showing her smuggling Joe's wives aboard the rig, setting the stage for rebellion. Anya Taylor-Joy steps into the titular role for the majority of the runtime, portraying an older teenage and young adult Furiosa with intense physicality and minimal dialogue, and much of her performance conveyed through piercing stares and precise movements honed from her ballet background. Director George Miller chose Taylor-Joy after being impressed by her work in other projects, noting her ability to embody strength and vulnerability without overt exposition. Her preparation involved rigorous training in driving, fighting, and stunt work, though many high-risk sequences relied on practical effects and doubles to prioritize safety. Chris Hemsworth delivers a standout villainous turn as Dementis, blending menace with tragic eccentricity. Miller cast him after discovering Hemsworth's unexpected depth and humor in discussions, allowing the actor to draw from personal inspirations like his grandfather's mannerisms and Carnival Barker energy for the character's voice and demeanor. Hemsworth's prosthetic nose and wild persona mark a departure from his heroic roles, earning praise for injecting charisma into the wasteland's chaos. Supporting performances ground the world building. Alila Brown captures young Furiosa's innocence turning to steel, seamlessly transitioning the character to Taylor-Joy's interpretation. Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack provides emotional anchor, his scarred, stoic driver forming a rare romantic and mentorship bond with Furiosa. Returning actors from the saga include Lackey Hume as a younger Immortan Joe, Angus Sampson reprising the grotesque organic mechanic, and others like Nathan Jones as the brutish Rictos. Production on the film returned to Australia after the prior installments shift to Namibia due to unexpected greenery. Principal photography spanned June to October 2022 across New South Wales locations, The arid expanses of Broken Hill and Silverton for vast wasteland chases, hayplains for the monumental war rig ambush, Colonel Dunes for confrontations, Tree Hills for the green places, forested sequences, Melrose Park industrial areas for Gastown, and Disney Studios in Sydney for Citadel interiors. This homecoming injected significant economic boost, with practical sets built to scale and minimal reliance on green screens for key action. Stunts remained a hallmark, coordinated by Guy Norris with emphasis on real vehicles and performers. Over 200 daily for major sequences, though enhanced by VFX for safety. The stowaway attack alone required 78 shooting days, blending pole vaulting raiders, exploding vehicles, and aerial assaults in a symphony of controlled chaos. Miller prioritized performer welfare, learning from past productions, resulting in grounded yet spectacular vehicular mayhem. Cinematography by Simon Duggan captures the saga's signature high-octane framing, with wide lenses emphasizing speed and scale. Editor Margaret Sixel, Miller's collaborator, structures the epic into chapters spanning 15 years, balancing relentless action with character introspection. Composer Tom Holkenborg's score amplifies the fury with industrial percussion and soaring themes. The film's design expands the lore. De Mendez's biker horde introduces motorcycle swarms and paraglider mortarflyers. The Citadel's treadmill-powered mechanisms highlight oppression. Custom vehicles like the six-wheeled cranky Black Charger embody ingenuity born of scarcity. Costume designer Jenny Bevan crafts layered, weathered garb reflecting tribal identities. Casting choices reflect Miller's vision for fresh energy. Recasting Furiosa avoided the aging pitfalls, allowing Taylor-Joy's athletic grace to echo yet distinguish from predecessors. Hemsworth's Australian roots and versatility subvert expectations, making Dementes a memorable foil. A bombastic yet broken. Brown's casting ensured physical resemblance and emotional continuity. Behind-the-scenes anecdotes reveal dedication. Taylor-Joy performed many drives herself. Hemsworth improvised theatrical flourishes. Practical explosions and flips dominated over CGI, preserving the franchise's tactile thrill. Filming in familiar Australian terrain evoked the original trilogy's grit, contrasting the prior film's foreign deserts. The narrative structure as an origin myth explores themes of loss, resilience, and cyclical violence. Furiosa's journey from victim to avenger underscores hope amid despair. The peach tree symbolizing regeneration. De Mendez's arc humanizes tyranny through grief, while Joe's empire critiques cultish control. Action set pieces propel the plot. The opening kidnapping chase sets visceral tone. Mary's pursuit showcases maternal ferocity. Rigged defenses innovate with flamethrowers and harpoons. The bullet farm betrayal delivers claustrophobic intensity. The final duel distills personal rage. Performances elevate archetype as Taylor-Joy's restraint amplifies fury. Hemsworth's exuberance makes villainy entertaining. Burke's quiet intensity provides heart. Supporting roles like George Shevtsov's history man narrate the world's oral history, adding mythic layer. Technical prowess shines. Aspect ratio 2.39 to 1 frames. Epic vistas. Sound design immerses in roaring engines and wind-whipped sound. Runtime of 148 minutes allows breathing room for character amid spectacle. The film's connections tie seamlessly. Fleeting Max citing returning characters in younger forms. Post-credits nod to prior artifacts. It enriches the universe without retreading, focusing on Furiosa's forging in fire. Casting depth extends to cameos and in symbols. Hemsworth's children appear briefly. Stunt performers double as horde members. Miller's pre-written backstory from the prior production informs authentic details. Production scale was immense. Budget around $168 million. Fueled practical builds. Australian incentives supported local crew. Challenges like weather were navigated with multiple of units. Ultimately, the body of work stands as a testament to visionary filmmaking, a blending myth, machinery, and human spirit in a roaring ode to survival. Furiosa's saga details her transformation through trials of captivity, labor, alliance, betrayal, and triumph, painting a vivid portrait of the wasteland's unforgiving forge. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga, production, release, and reception. Production development and pre-production. The genesis of Furiosa spans over 15 years, making it one of the longest gestating projects in recent cinema history. Director George Miller and co-writer Nicola Thuris began developing the character's backstory while preparing Mad Max, Fury Road. Miller revealed that the script for Furiosa was actually completed before Fury Road was filmed. In order to tell Fury Road's story cohesively, Miller needed to understand everything that happened before, so he and Luthuris wrote a complete screenplay about Furiosa from the time she was taken as a child until she became the Imperator audiences met in Fury Road. This comprehensive screenplay, complete with concept art, was provided to all the actors, designers, and crew members working on Fury Road, serving as essential background material. Actress Charlize Theron, who portrayed Furiosa in Fury Road, used this screenplay as reference material for her performance. Miller's approach demonstrated his commitment to world building and character development, ensuring that every element of the Mad Max universe had deep roots and history. In July 2010, Miller announced plans to shoot Fury Road back-to-back with a live-action prequel film entitled Mad Max Furiosa. However, during pre-production, the decision was made to shoot only Fury Road first. Miller initially intended to shoot Furiosa immediately following Fury Road, but the project spent several years in development limbo due to a salary dispute between Miller and Warner Bros. Pictures over Fury Road earnings. In November 2017, Miller's production company Kennedy Miller Mitchell filed a lawsuit against Warner Bros. Over the Fury Road salary dispute, which significantly delayed production of any additional entries in the franchise. This legal battle prevented Miller from moving forward with his Mad Max projects for years. By July 2019, Miller revealed that a Furiosa film was still being planned in addition to 2 Mad Max sequels, indicating his long-term commitment to the franchise despite the obstacles. The breakthrough came in March 2020 when Miller and Warner Bros. Settled their lawsuit. With the legal issues resolved, the studio began casting the Furiosa prequel, which Miller intended to make after completing 3,000 Years of Longing. Reports indicated that the film would take place over a time frame of 15 years, depicting Furiosa's backstory from her displacement from home and her decades-long journey trying to return. Multiple Fury Road crew members agreed to return for the film, demonstrating their loyalty to Miller and the project. This included composer Tom Holkenborg, costume designer Jenny Bevan, editor Margaret Sixel, who is also Miller's wife, makeup designer Leslie Vanderwalt, and production designer Colin Gibson. The continuity of the creative team ensured that Furiosa would maintain the distinctive visual and sonic identity established in Fury Road. According to Miller's framework, Furiosa takes place after Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome but maintains that the Mad Max franchise has no strict chronology. The first trailer stated that Furiosa takes place 45 years after the collapse, providing context for the post-apocalyptic world's evolution. At one point during development, Miller and Luthuris hoped to turn the Furiosa screenplay into an anime film directed by Mahiro Maeda, who had previously worked on the Animatrix, though this idea was eventually abandoned in favor of live action. The casting process brought together an impressive ensemble. Anya Taylor-Joy was cast as the adult Furiosa, taking over the role from Charlize Theron. Taylor-Joy was fresh off her success in projects like The Queen's Gambit, The Northman, and Emma. Chris Hemsworth joined as the villainous Dementis, marking a departure from his heroic Marvel roles. Tom Burke was cast as Praetorian Jack, a military commander who befriends Furiosa. Young Australian actress Lila Brown, who had worked with Miller on 3,000 Years of Longing, was cast as the child and teenage Furiosa. Government support proved crucial in making the production possible. The film received extensive government subsidies, including a filming incentive from the New South Wales government and various offsets from the federal government. Miller explicitly stated that government support made shooting in Australia possible. Queensland University of Technology professor Amanda Lotz estimated that Screen NSW contributed approximately 50 million Australian dollars in direct subsidies to Furiosa's budget. Additionally, the federal government offers all qualifying films a tax rebate equivalent to 40% of the amount spent in Australia. Lotz estimated this federal rebate at 133 million Australian dollars. NSW Premier Gladys Berejiklian expressed hope that Furiosa would contribute 350 million Australian dollars to the Australian economy. The exact size of the NSW filming incentive became a subject of discussion when an ABC report initially estimated it as 175 million Australian dollars. though this figure was later removed from their reporting. The production was financed by Kennedy Miller Mitchell Films and Warner Brothers Pictures. Village Roadshow Pictures, which had co-financed Fury Road, was credited in initial marketing material for Furiosa. However, following the film's premiere, all mentions of Village Roadshow were omitted from promotions and the film itself. Industry reports suggested that Warner Brothers financed the bulk of the film's budget without co-financiers like Village Roadshow, likely due to content disputes related to Warner Brothers' simultaneous release strategy in 2021. Domain Entertainment, a private equity fund that co-financed other Warner Brothers productions, was listed in the opening credits. Pre-production included extensive preparation for the film's massive action sequences. Action designer Guy Norris worked with Miller using the Proxy virtual production system, also called Toy Box. This elaborate previs tool utilized performance capture and real-time rendering with Unreal Engine, allowing them to plan complex sequences before filming began. The Stowaway to Nowhere sequence alone required planning for 197 shots that would be filmed on 78 separate days. Filming principal photography officially commenced on June 1, 2022, and continued through November 3, 2022. The production filmed entirely in New South Wales, Australia, marking a triumphant return to the franchise's homeland after Fury Road was forced to relocate to Namibia due to unexpected rainfall that caused wildflowers to bloom in the Australian desert. Miller shot the film at various locations throughout New South Wales. Broken Hill and the nearby settlement of Silverton served as primary desert locations, providing the quintessential Mad Max outback aesthetic that fans recognized from earlier films in the franchise. Broken Hill holds special significance for the Mad Max series, having been used extensively in The Road Warrior. The area even features its own Mad Max 2 museum filled with props from that production. Producer Doug Mitchell described the emotional significance of returning to Broken Hill, stating that anyone affected by The Road Warrior would understand the special quality of the landscape. The quality of light and sense of solitude in the region lent a spiritual quality to the production, perfectly capturing the wasteland atmosphere Miller sought. The production's headquarters bustled with activity as cast and crew worked to bring Miller's vision to life. The town of Hain in the Riverina region hosted filming for the elaborate stowaway action sequence. The massive convoy of motorhomes, trucks, and four-wheel drives descended upon this farming community, providing a significant economic boost after the area had suffered from the effects of COVID-19 and an extended drought. Local businesses reported unprecedented activity, with one cafe manager selling more than 220 coffees in a single day. The production held a fireworks display as a thank you to the community before moving to their next location. Kurnell, an oceanside suburb in Sydney's Sutherland Shire, provided locations for several key sequences. The sand dunes at Kurnell already had Mad Max pedigree, having hosted the crashed 747 scene in Beyond Thunderdome. For Furiosa, the location was used to film scenes between Hemsworth's Dementis and Taylor-Joy's Furiosa, including the dramatic confrontation where Dementis discovers he has been hunted down. The bullet farm gates and structures were also constructed at Kurnell, with production designer Colin Gibson building massive gates above a quarry. Tree Hills in northern Sydney served as the filming location for the green place of many mothers, the lush oasis where Furiosa's story begins. This verdant location provided stark contrast to the harsh desert environments that dominate most of the film, visually representing what has been lost in the post-apocalyptic world. Disney Studios Australia in Moore Park, Sydney, formerly Fox Studios, hosted the Citadel interior scenes. Miller and producer Mitchell had been using this facility since Babe, Pig in the City and were comfortable with its capabilities. The studio allowed them to create huge interior sets for the Citadel, and the controlled environment protected them from weather delays that could cost millions of dollars. The Sydney base also meant cast and crew could live at home rather than in temporary accommodations, reducing costs. Melrose Park, a northwest Sydney suburb, housed the Gastown set. The production used an old handling depot that was scheduled for demolition, transforming it into one of the 3 neo-medieval citadels featured in the film. This practical approach to location scouting maximized authenticity while managing the budget efficiently. The production employed elaborate safety measures for the extensive stunt work. High-end motorcycle crashes required rigging and motion capture suits rather than putting stunt performers at actual risk. The motion data from these captures could then be overlaid onto 3D avatars and integrated into the filmed sequences. During pre-production, actor Lucky Hume fell off a motorcycle while practicing for a scene, prompting Miller to decide that all of Hume's bike riding would be performed by his stunt double Chris Matheson. Cameras were mounted to vehicles continuously traveling up and down a 2.5-mile stretch of straight road to capture the film's vehicular action sequences. This approach allowed for dynamic camera angles and maintained the kinetic energy that defines Mad Max action. The production shot in what Miller described as building an animated film using live-action components, filmed at 48 frames per second to allow for precise speed manipulation in post-production. Weather conditions during the shoot were not ideal for a desert-based film, presenting challenges that would be addressed in post-production. Unlike Fury Road, which had to relocate due to rain causing uncharacteristic vegetation growth, Furiosa stayed in Australia with the understanding that visual effects could manage any weather inconsistencies. This decision represented both advances in VFX technology and Miller's evolution in embracing digital tools. The production maintained tight security throughout filming. When cast and crew descended on various towns, security prevented public access to filming activities. This protected both the production's proprietary content and maintained the mystery around plot details before release. Some crew members and extras would visit local establishments during downtime, but the main stars remained largely sequestered. First Assistant Director P.J. Vogt noted that Furiosa differed significantly from Fury Road in its narrative structure. While Fury Road was essentially one continuous chase taking place over a short time frame, Furiosa spans 15 years and tells its story through different geographical locations. This required different filming approaches, with less emphasis on relentless forward momentum and more focus on character development across time. The 8-month filming period captured a story taking place across 15 years, requiring attention to character aging, costume progression, and the evolution of the wasteland environment. The production's scope and ambition led to estimates that Furiosa would become the biggest film ever made in Australia, a distinction that carried both pride and pressure for everyone involved. Post-production on Furiosa represented a massive undertaking that showcased the evolution of visual effects technology and George Miller's willingness to embrace digital tools more fully than he had on Fury Road. The work extended from mid-2022 through early 2024, with various teams working simultaneously on different aspects of the film. Visual effects became a central focus of post-production. Production VFX supervisor Andrew Jackson returned from Fury Road, bringing his Academy Award-nominated expertise to the project. His home studio led the VFX effort, working in collaboration with Framestore, Metaphysic.I, Rising Sun Pictures, and SlateFX. Jackson had previously won an Oscar for his work on Tenet and brought that level of craftsmanship to Furiosa. Jackson acknowledged that Furiosa leaned much more heavily on visual effects than Fury Road, stating that Miller completely embraced the idea that CG was the way to build worlds and accomplish necessary post-production work. This represented a significant philosophical shift for the director, who had been celebrated for Fury Road's extensive use of practical effects. The 9 years between films had seen substantial advances in photorealistic technology, giving Miller confidence to expand his digital toolkit. The decision to shoot in Australia despite less than ideal weather conditions meant extensive VFX work was necessary. According to Framestore, the opening chase sequence where Mary tracks Furiosa's kidnappers through sand dunes required replacing almost all of the ground. Colorist Eric Whipp, who also worked on Fury Road, explained that desert scenes needed to match the look of Namibia, and the huge mix of sunny and cloudy days during shooting meant many backgrounds in the film were full CG. NIG opened a new studio in Sydney specifically to service Furiosa's ambitious visual effects requirements. The facility launched in early 2023 with approximately 500 artists, comparable in scale to NIC's offices in North America and London. The New South Wales government supported this expansion with infrastructure assistance, subsidised training programs, and a $250 million jobs program. This investment in local VFX infrastructure reflected the production's importance to the Australian film industry. Dan Bethel led NIC's work as VFX supervisor, having previously served as CG sequence supervisor on Fury Road. Bethel and Jackson had the dual challenge of establishing a new facility while maintaining the exacting standards required for a George Miller production. The team delivered 880 shots across 24 key sequences, including the major action set pieces that define the film. The 15-minute Stowaway to Nowhere sequence exemplified the complexity of the VFX work. This bravura action sequence features raiders ambushing the war rig driven by Praetorian Jack and Furiosa. The 197 shots were filmed on 78 separate days across different New South Wales locations and at Disney Studios in Sydney. The VFX team stitched together these disparate elements, augmented backdrops, animated elements that were too dangerous to film practically, and ensured continuity across the entire sequence. Traditional CGI work included enhancing backdrops and stitching together shots from multiple stuntmen who filmed their dangerous sequences separately for safety reasons. Jackson used VFX to heighten action scenes, such as animating the Octobos's demise in the Stowaway sequence. For the final chase, a CGI version of Furiosa's otherwise practical car was used to animate maneuvers far too dangerous to attempt with a real vehicle, including side-swiping motorbikes. The VFX team extended desert landscapes and skies throughout the film, ensuring visual consistency despite the varied shooting conditions. Gastown and Bullet Farm, two of the three citadels featured in the film, required extensive digital embellishment. Gastown's refinery aesthetic and Bullet Farm's quarry crater demanded both practical construction and digital expansion to achieve Miller's vision. The Bullet Farm was described as resembling Brazilian mines, with people stuck down in a hole, and the VFX team added the massive gates and surrounding structures to the practical quarry location. One particularly sophisticated VFX achievement involved facial animation to blend the performances of the two actresses playing Furiosa. Lila Brown portrayed the character as a child and teenager, while Anya Taylor-Joy played the adult Furiosa. Using machine learning technology from metaphysic.ai, the team created imperceptible composites of Brown's and Taylor-Joy's faces. This allowed for seamless transitions between the actresses and enhanced Brown's resemblance to Taylor-Joy when necessary. This facial work represents cutting-edge application of AI in filmmaking. The technology avoided the uncanny valley effect that often plagues facial replacement or de-aging effects. Many viewers simply perceived it as inspired casting rather than recognizing the technical achievement. The success of this work demonstrated how properly implemented VFX can serve the story invisibly rather than calling attention to itself. Fire, water, dust, and smoke simulations benefited from the 9 years of technological advancements since Fury Road. The VFX team could create more realistic environmental effects and integrate them more seamlessly with practical elements. Large-scale destruction sequences, particularly the Bullet Farm ambush, required choreographing effects across multiple shots while maintaining rhythm, continuity, and visual impact. Editing proved equally crucial to shaping the final film. Margaret Sixel returned as editor, having won an Academy Award for her work on Fury Road. Her collaboration with Miller dates back decades, and her intimate understanding of his vision proved invaluable. The film featured 5 chapters: The Pole of Inaccessibility, Lessons from the Wasteland, The Stowaway, Homeward, and Beyond Vengeance. This structure differed from early preview footage shown at CinemaCon, which suggested only 3 chapters. Sixel worked through the massive amount of footage typical of a Miller production. The shooting ratio of the amount of film shot compared to what appears in the final cut was substantial, giving Sixel numerous options for every sequence. Her editing choices determined pacing, emotional beats, and the film's overall rhythm. Unlike Fury Road's relentless forward momentum, Furiosa required a different editorial approach to accommodate its epic scope and 15-year time span. The editorial and VFX teams worked in unprecedented coordination. Spectrum Films in Sydney handled workflow supervision, conform, and home entertainment mastering and bakelite color grading software. Because so few shots didn't require visual effects, everything was processed via EXR sequences rather than working with original camera raw files. This integration meant that editorial changes often happened in the DI, digital intermediate, process rather than traditional editing timelines. Color grading represented a significant post-production component. Colorist Eric Whip of Alter Ego worked across 3 locations: Alter Ego's offices in Los Angeles and Toronto, and Spectrum Films in Sydney. Whip's collaboration with Miller dates back nearly 20 years to Happy Feet in 2005. And he had worked on Fury Road as well. This long relationship meant Whip understood Miller's preferences and visual language. The look development process began approximately 2 years before the film's release, with Whip completing grading tests as shooting commenced. These early sessions established the film's visual palette. Whip rewatched Fury Road to remind himself of that film's aesthetic, knowing that Furiosa needed to be similar but not identical. The prequel visits locations only mentioned in Fury Road, particularly Gastown and Bullet Farm, requiring distinct color schemes for each. Miller's hands-on approach to color grading meant extensive sessions in the bakelite suite. He loves rich, contrasty images, and Whip's challenge was delivering that look without it appearing cheap or overly digital. The graphic novel-like aesthetic required bold color choices while maintaining photorealistic quality. The film's chapters each have subtle color distinctions that guide viewers through the narrative's progression. Alter Ego opened its Los Angeles office in September 2023. With Furiosa as one of the first projects. The company ensured their 6 bakelite suites in Toronto could sync seamlessly with the 2 new LA suites, allowing Whip to work flexibly across locations. This distributed workflow reflected the increasingly global nature of post-production, with work proceeding simultaneously across multiple time zones. Sound design and mixing represented another major post-production element. Tom Holkenborg, working as both composer and re-recording mixer, integrated music and sound more completely than traditional workflows allow. Supervising sound editor Robert McKenzie collaborated closely with Holkenborg, blurring the lines between sound effects and music. Some sequences feature sound design so integrated with the score that distinguishing between them becomes impossible. The film was shot at 48 frames per second, giving Miller extensive control over pacing in post-production. He could speed up or slow down action as needed, precisely controlling where audiences focused their attention. Miller's approach, as described by Jackson, treats live-action filmmaking like animation, building the film in post-production rather than capturing it definitively during shooting. Miller's editing process involves cutting bits out of one shot and putting them in another, retiming elements, and placing everything exactly where he wants it in the frame. This meticulous approach requires time and patience from everyone involved. The extensive DI sessions pulled the entire image around, with visual effects adjusting to match the color grading rather than the other way around. This inversion of typical workflow reflects Miller's exacting standards and clear vision. By March 2024, the film was set to completed status after transitioning through post-production in July 2023. The lengthy post-production period allowed for the refinement necessary to meet Miller's standards. Every frame received attention, every effect was refined, and the entire sonic and visual landscape was sculpted into its final form. Music. Tom Holkenborg, professionally known as Junkie XL, returned to compose the score for Furiosa after his widely acclaimed work on Mad Max, Fury Road. The collaboration between Holkenborg and George Miller had proven creatively fruitful, and they had also worked together on 3,000 Years of Longing between the two Mad Max films. This established relationship meant Holkenborg deeply understood Miller's vision and the sonic identity of the wasteland. Holkenborg's role on Furiosa extended beyond traditional composition. He not only wrote the score but also worked alongside Academy Award-winning supervising sound editor Robert McKenzie to mix the film's final audio. This unconventional arrangement allowed for unprecedented integration between music and sound design, creating a seamless sonic experience where the boundaries between music, effects, and dialogue blurred in service of the story. The composer described his collaboration with Miller as pivotal to his career as a film composer, returning to score Furiosa's epic tale of survival, resilience, and Revenge proved just as eye-opening and gratifying as the original Fury Road experience. Hulkenborg characterized Furiosa as a testament to a singular filmmaker whose pursuit of excellence continually inspired him to push creative limits. The musical approach for Furiosa differed significantly from Fury Road. While the 2015 film took place over approximately 48 hours and functioned essentially as one extended chase, Furiosa spends 20 years and follows a single character's odyssey. This temporal scope required Hulkenborg to score from Furiosa's first-person perspective rather than as an external observer. The music needed to reflect her emotional journey, her psychological state, and her gradual transformation into the warrior audiences met in Fury Road. Hulkenborg selected 4 sonic elements as foundational to the score. The primary element, called Darkest of Gods, features heavily distorted sounds created with a Buchla 200D modular synthesizer system developed in the 1960s. Hulkenborg had only acquired this rare instrument about 18 months before beginning work on Furiosa, and immediately recognized its potential for the film. The Buchla's primitive, almost primeval character perfectly captured the darkness pervading the narrative via Dementes emerging from the deepest cellar of hell, and Furiosa's arc into an instrument of vengeance. The score's instrumentation deliberately evokes age and tragedy. When Hulkenborg uses instruments without distortion, they are jukebox and didgeridoo, ancient, earthy instruments with roots stretching back millennia. These specific choices connect to musical motifs established in Fury Road, where the didgeridoo and juke appeared during discussions of the Green Place. By opening Furiosa with these instruments as the story begins at the Green Place, Hulkenborg created sonic continuity across the films while establishing the prequel's distinct musical identity. The pumping heartbeat underlying much of the score comes from the vintage Buchla synthesizer, adding a primeval quality compared to more modern synthesizers. Hulkenborg intentionally avoided many electronic riffs, soaring strings, and blaring horns from Fury Road. The prequel needed to feel more primal, more tied to Furiosa's mental torment as she fought for survival and revenge. This restraint distinguished Furiosa's score from its predecessor while maintaining thematic connections. One of Hulkenborg's boldest choices involved silence. In the middle of the film's massive stowaway to nowhere action sequence, music essentially disappears for 5 or 6 minutes, with only minimal scoring when present. Hulkenborg explained that during this sequence, viewers don't initially know Furiosa is present, and when she appears, she focuses purely on staying alive and out of the way. The sparse music reflects her perspective as she isn't experiencing heroic action music because she's desperately trying to survive undetected. Miller and Hulkenborg discussed avoiding traditional action scoring for certain sequences. Making the stowaway play like a conventional action movie would have been the wrong approach. Instead, they extended the juke and didgeridoo work, stretching sounds throughout the theater's audio space. They agreed that wall-to-wall orchestral scoring would turn their set piece into something resembling a Batman action sequence, which wasn't appropriate for that moment in Furiosa's story. Silence became one of the composer's most powerful tools, especially in an era of ubiquitous film scoring. The character of Dementes required complex musical treatment. At the beginning, he presents himself as a white knight, claiming he'll operate differently than Immortan Joe. When Furiosa first encounters him, she doesn't understand what to make of this man, so the music doesn't comment extensively during those tense scenes. As Dementes' true nature reveals itself, the music evolves to represent Furiosa's perception of him as the darkest of gods. This theme plays during his most gnarly, violent actions, and Furiosa eventually embodies that darkness herself after losing her arm, becoming filled with hatred and desire for retribution. The bullet farm sequence required particular musical sensitivity. Miller wanted the scene to function as a love story amid action. Through their actions, Furiosa and Praetorian Jack demonstrate willingness to sacrifice themselves entirely for each other. Miller vetoed reusing Brothers in Arms from Fury Road, which had accompanied Max and Furiosa helping each other escape the Rock Rider Canyon. Instead, he directed Hulkenborg to use Fury Road's musical motifs for the Green Place, focusing audience attention on Furiosa's willingness to sacrifice her best chance of finding home to save Jack's life. Hulkenborg employed AI technology in unexpected ways during composition. He used AI to create deepfake voices from other sounds, experimenting with transforming drum rhythms into electric guitar sounds. The software's ability to process these transformations logically created happy accidents that appeared throughout the score. This represented the cutting edge of AI application in music composition, using technology to generate unexpected textures rather than to replicate human performance. The Sydney Scoring Orchestra performed the orchestral elements under conductor Christopher Gordon. Pedro Eustache provided Judique woodwinds, while William Barton contributed didgeridoo performances. The combination of traditional orchestral elements with electronic and ethnic instruments created the score's rich, layered texture. Recording took place in Sydney, keeping post-production consolidated in Australia. The vehicles in Furiosa carry narrative weight, and the score reflects this. When Dementis is strong, he commands the most powerful engine. When Furiosa is vulnerable, her mother pursues on a horse, then a modest bike, then a thunder bike approaching the camp. Eventually Furiosa possesses one Cara the Valiant with two bikes mounted on Tobal, but it's no match for Dementis' six-wheel truck. Later in the film, this dynamic reverses. The musical themes associated with these vehicles and their owners chart the power dynamics and character development. Miller's approach to integrating music, sound effects, and dialogue pushed Hulkenborg into the sound team's territory more than composers typically venture. Human voices, sound effects, music, and silence are the four audio tools that form a complete film's soundtrack. Traditionally, different specialists handle each element separately, with a re-recording mixer eventually balancing them together. Furiosa welded sound and music together throughout post-production. One brief sequence early in the film exemplifies this integration. Young Furiosa wakes on the back of a bike after being kidnapped, a moment lasting perhaps 30 seconds. Spikes of distorted sound lead into the scene, then Furiosa's breathing is heavily distorted, blending almost imperceptibly with the motorcycle's hum. Both sound and image then clarify as Furiosa understands where she is. Hulkenborg and Mackenzie spent nearly a full day mixing just those 25 seconds to achieve proper detailing. The soundtrack album was released on May 17, 2024, a week before the film's theatrical premiere. Water Tower Music distributed the album, which features 18 tracks totaling approximately 70 minutes. The track titles reflect specific story moments: The Pole of Inaccessibility, Dementis, The Promise, You Are Awaited, The Stowaway, The Bullet Farm, The Darkest of Gods, and Epilogue. This structure allows listeners to follow Furiosa's journey through music alone. Hulkenborg's score received praise from critics and audiences, with many noting how it complemented rather than competed with the visuals. The music's restraint in key moments and its willingness to embrace silence distinguished it from typical blockbuster scoring. By scoring from Furiosa's perspective and tying musical choices to her psychological journey, Hulkenborg created an emotionally resonant work that enhanced the film's character study rather than merely punctuating its action. Released theatrical, Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga premiered at the 77th Cannes Film Festival on May 15, 2024, screening out of competition. The festival premiere represented a prestigious launch for the film, placing it among the year's most anticipated releases. Director George Miller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Chris Hemsworth attended the premiere, with their presence generating significant media coverage. The film's marketing campaign began building momentum months before release. On November 30, 2023, Warner Bros. Released the first trailer, stating that Furiosa takes place 45 years after the collapse. This trailer generated immediate online discussion, with some fans expressing concern about the apparent reliance on CGI compared to Fury Road's celebrated practical effects. On March 19, 2024, the official full trailer debuted, providing a more comprehensive look at the film's scope and story. At CinemaCon on April 9, Warner Bros. Screened approximately 5 minutes of extended footage for theater owners and industry professionals. Miller, Taylor-Joy, and Hemsworth appeared together for the first time in public to promote the film. This extended preview revealed the film would be split into distinct chapters with titles like Her Odyssey Begins, A Warrior Awakens, and A Ride into Vengeance. The final film actually features 5 chapters with different titles. Total Film magazine released 3 exclusive first look images on April 19. On May 16, Odeon Cinemas released an extended sneak peek that was uploaded to YouTube the following day. This steady drumbeat of promotional material maintained audience interest and conversation throughout the months leading to release. The film was released theatrically in Australia and India on May 23, 2024. With the United States release following on May 24. The Memorial Day weekend timing in America aimed to capitalize on the holiday's historically strong box office potential. The film opened wide in the United States across 3,804 theaters, with substantial IMAX and premium large format representation. The original release date had been scheduled for June 23, 2023. But the film was delayed to May 2024 to allow adequate time for the extensive post-production work. This 11-month delay reflected the complexity of the visual effects and the meticulous nature of Miller's filmmaking process. China represented a new frontier for the Mad Max franchise when Furiosa opened there on June 7, 2024. 1 week behind the United States. This marked the first time a Mad Max film received theatrical distribution in the world's largest film market. The Chinese opening came during the Dragon Boat Festival holiday weekend, though the film faced competition from strong local releases. Japan's release came on May 31, 2024, also delayed by 1 week from the American opening. The film debuted at number 1 in Japan, becoming the first non-Japanese film of 2024 to claim the top spot, a significant achievement in a market that typically favors domestic productions. Warner Bros. Mounted an extensive marketing campaign emphasizing the film's epic scale, Anya Taylor-Joy's star power following the Queen's Gambit, and Chris Hemsworth's villainous turn. Television spots, online advertising, and promotional partnerships aim to reach both Mad Max fans and general audiences. The marketing highlighted the film's connection to Fury Road while establishing it as a standalone story accessible to newcomers. Industry projections ahead of opening weekend estimated the film would earn between $40 and $45 million over the 4-day Memorial Day weekend in the United States. These projections reflected confidence in the franchise's drawing power and the strength of the cast. However, these estimates would prove optimistic as actual performance fell short of expectations. Home media. Following its disappointing theatrical run, Furiosa received a relatively quick transition to home media formats. The film became available for premium digital ownership and rental on June 25, 2024, exactly 1 month after its theatrical release. This rapid home media window reflected both the film's box office underperformance and industry trends towards shorter theatrical exclusivity periods. The digital release offered multiple purchasing options. Premium digital ownership cost $29.99. Allowing consumers to own the film permanently on participating platforms. A 48-hour rental option was available for $24.99. The film could be purchased or rented through major digital platforms including Amazon Prime Video, Apple TV, Google Play, Fandango at Home, formerly Vudu, and other participating services. Physical media releases followed on August 13, 2024. Warner Bros. Home Entertainment released the film in multiple formats: 4K Ultra HD, Blu-ray, and DVD. The 4K Ultra HD version featured a Dolby Vision HDR presentation with Dolby Atmos audio, providing premium home theater quality. Each physical format included a digital copy code for added convenience. A limited edition steelbook version was released simultaneously, featuring distinctive collectible packaging. The steelbook included the film on both 4K Ultra HD and standard Blu-ray, along with a digital copy. Retail pricing for the standard 4K release was $49.98, the Blu-ray was $39.98, and the DVD was $34.98. The steelbook commanded a premium at $54.97. The home media releases included various special features. The 4K Ultra HD and Blu-ray versions contained several behind-the-scenes featurettes. Beyond Fury, Vengeance explored the film's themes and character development. Fury on Four Wheels examined the vehicle design and construction. Maniacs Clans of the Wasteland detailed the various factions inhabiting Miller's world. Additional featurettes focused on specific production elements. Stowaway to Nowhere provided an in-depth look at the creation of the film's central action sequence. Discovering Furiosa chronicled Anya Taylor-Joy's preparation for an embodiment of the iconic character. Deleted or extended scenes did not appear to be included in the initial home media release, though Miller had hinted at the possibility of an extended cut. The streaming release followed later in 2024. Max, formerly HBO Max, Warner Bros. Discovery's flagship streaming service, became the film's exclusive streaming home. In the United States, Furiosa began streaming on Max on August 15, 2024, approximately 3 months after its theatrical release. The timing aligned with the service's broader strategy of bringing Warner Bros. Theatrical releases to streaming within specific windows. International streaming followed similar patterns, with the film appearing on Max where available and on equivalent Warner Bros. Platforms in other territories. In regions without Max, the film appeared on services where Warner Bros. Held distribution agreements. The global streaming rollout occurred throughout late summer and fall 2024. The availability on Max included both standard definition and 4K Ultra HD options for subscribers with compatible plans. The streaming version featured Dolby Atmos audio and Dolby Vision HDR on supported devices, matching the quality of the premium physical media release. This parity and technical presentation became increasingly important as streaming established itself as the primary viewing method for many consumers. Australian audiences received special attention in the home media rollout. Given that Australia served as the production's home and a significant portion of government funding supported the film, Warner Bros. Ensured robust availability across all platforms in that territory. Australian retailers offered exclusive packaging variants and promotional bundles tied to the film's local production history. The rapid transition from theatrical to home media reflected industry realities in the post-pandemic era. Films underperforming theatrically often accelerate home media releases to recoup costs and capitalize on whatever awareness theatrical marketing generated. Furiosa's quick pivot to digital and physical formats suggested Warner Bros. Recognized the theatrical window would be short and prioritized capturing revenue from home viewing. Reception box office. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga experienced significant commercial challenges, ultimately becoming one of the notable box office disappointments of 2024 despite its quality and pedigree. The film's financial performance sparked extensive industry analysis about franchise fatigue, audience preferences, and the challenges facing even well-reviewed action films in the contemporary marketplace. The film's reported production budget stood at $168 million. Though some estimates placed actual costs as high as $233 million when including all subsidies, tax incentives, and government funding. Marketing and distribution added tens of millions more to the break-even calculation. Industry analysts typically estimate that a film needs to gross approximately 2.5 times its production budget to break even after exhibitor shares and other costs. Furiosa opened to $32 million over the 4-day Memorial Day weekend in the United States, including $25.5 million over the traditional 3-day weekend. These figures fell significantly short of pre-release projections, which had estimated a 4-day total between $40–45 million. The Memorial Day opening ranked as one of the lowest for a major studio tentpole release during that traditionally lucrative holiday weekend. The domestic opening represented a steep decline from Mad Max, Fury Road, which had opened to $45.4 million over its 3-day opening weekend in May 2015. Adjusted for inflation, the gap widened even further. Despite significantly stronger reviews and word of mouth than many 2024 releases, Furiosa struggled to attract audiences during its initial release. Several factors contributed to the disappointing opening. The film faced competition from holdovers including the Garfield movie and If, which appealed to family audiences seeking Memorial Day weekend entertainment. Industry observers noted that Furiosa's R rating limited its potential audience compared to PG or PG-13 rated alternatives. The film's 148-minute runtime, nearly 2.5 hours, also reduced the number of daily showings theaters could schedule. Internationally, Furiosa opened to approximately $33.3 million from 76 territories, bringing its global opening weekend to roughly $58.9 million. These international figures similarly disappointed, particularly in major markets like the United Kingdom, where the Mad Max franchise had previously performed well. Australia, despite its connection to the production, generated modest results relative to the film's scale. The second weekend brought a steep 59% decline, with the film earning approximately $10.7 million domestically. This drop exceeded normal second weekend falls and indicated weak audience interest beyond the core franchise fanbase. By the end of its second weekend, the domestic total stood at approximately $49 million. International markets showed similar patterns of front-loading followed by steep declines. China's opening on June 7, 2024, failed to provide the boost Warner Bros. Hoped for. Despite being the first Mad Max film to receive Chinese theatrical distribution, Furiosa opened to a disappointing $1.97 million. The film quickly fell from Chinese theaters as local releases and Hollywood competitors captured audience attention. China's contribution to the global total remained negligible, never reaching $3 million. By the end of its theatrical run, Furiosa had grossed approximately $67.7 million domestically and $105.8 million internationally, for a worldwide total of $173.5 million. These figures made the film profitable only on paper, failing to account for marketing costs or to generate the returns Warner Bros. Expected from a major franchise entry. The film did not reach $200 million globally, at a threshold generally considered minimum for tentpole success. The financial disappointment stood in stark contrast to critical reception, creating a disconnect that puzzled industry observers. Unlike many box office failures, Furiosa couldn't be dismissed as a bad film rejected by audiences. Its strong reviews and passionate fan support suggested the issues lay elsewhere. Various theories emerged attempting to explain the underperformance. Some analysts pointed to franchise fatigue, arguing that 9 years between Mad Max films diluted brand awareness, particularly among younger audiences who hadn't seen Fury Road theatrically. Others suggested the absence of Tom Hardy's Max Rocketansky, despite Max being tangential to this story, confused casual audiences about whether this counted as a real Mad Max film. The shift to a younger actress in the lead role may have disconnected some viewers who associated Charlize Theron's physical portrayal with the character. The marketing campaign received criticism for emphasizing spectacle over character and story. Some observers felt the trailers made Furiosa appear generic, failing to convey the emotional depth that distinguished the film from typical action fare. The decision to focus heavily on Chris Hemsworth's villainous dementas in marketing may have overshadowed Anya Taylor-Joy's central performance. Broader industry trends also played roles in the outcome. The 2024 box office showed audience selectivity, with only certain films breaking through to major success. Audiences increasingly reserved theatrical viewing for events they deemed unmissable, watching most content at home. Action films faced particular challenges, with several high-profile entries underperforming. The post-pandemic theatrical landscape proved less forgiving than pre-2020 models. Some commentators noted timing issues. Opening against family films during Memorial Day weekend potentially miscalculated the audience. An earlier or later release date might have provided clearer space in the marketplace. Additionally, the summer 2024 slate was particularly crowded with major releases, creating fierce competition for audience attention and dollars. The film's performance in IMAX and premium large format screens somewhat exceeded its overall box office trajectory. Approximately 25% of opening weekend gross came from premium screens, despite these representing a smaller percentage of total theaters. This suggested that audiences motivated to see Furiosa sought optimal viewing experiences, but the pool of such motivated viewers was smaller than anticipated. Demographic analysis revealed the audience skewed heavily male, approximately 62%, and older, nearly 60% over age 35. The film struggled to attract female audiences and younger viewers in proportion to its marketing spend. This demographic imbalance meant Furiosa was effectively competing in a narrower segment of the movie-going population. Warner Brothers attempted to put positive spins on the performance, noting strong per-theater averages and citing excellent exit scores and critical acclaim as evidence of long-term franchise health. However, the theatrical bottom line remained disappointing. The studio's decision to accelerate home media release tacitly acknowledged theatrical potential had been exhausted. The financial outcome raised questions about potential sequels. Miller had discussed 2 more Mad Max films he hoped to make, including a direct Fury Road sequel called The Wasteland. Furiosa's performance made these projects less certain, as studios typically hesitate to greenlight expensive sequels to box office disappointments regardless of critical success. Miller himself acknowledged in interviews that Furiosa's box office might impact his ability to continue the franchise. Critical response in stark contrast to its commercial struggles. Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga received overwhelmingly positive reviews from critics, establishing itself as one of the best-reviewed films of 2024. The critical consensus celebrated George Miller's directorial achievement, the performances, the action choreography, and the depth of storytelling in what could have been a simple action prequel. On Rotten Tomatoes, the film achieved a certified fresh rating of 90% based on 410 reviews, with an average score of 7.8 out of 10. The site's critical consensus stated, matching Fury Road's frenzied pace while adding surprising emotional depth to the title character's origin story, Furiosa finds George Miller working at the top of his craft. This remarkable level of approval placed the film among the year's critical favorites. Metacritic, which assigns a weighted average score, gave Furiosa 79 out of 100 based on 64 critics, indicating generally favorable reviews. This score represented strong critical consensus, though slightly below Fury Road's 90. CinemaScore polling of opening weekend audiences assigned the film a grade of B+ on an A+2F scale, suggesting general audience satisfaction though not the A-range enthusiasm that drives major box office success. Peter Bradshaw of The Guardian awarded the film 5 stars, praising it as a jaw-dropping, eyeball-frying apocalypse epic and declaring Miller the sorcerer of the Sistine Chapel of action filmmaking. Bradshaw particularly celebrated the film's visual invention and the way Miller maintained tension across the extended runtime. His review exemplified the enthusiastic response from major critics. David Ehrlich of IndieWire gave the film a grade of A, writing that while it doesn't achieve the perfection of Fury Road, Furiosa represents a thrilling and unexpectedly moving origin story that breathes even more life into Miller's post-apocalyptic wasteland. Ehrlich praised the character development and emotional resonance that distinguished the film from typical blockbuster prequels. Richard Roper of the Chicago Sun-Times awarded 4 stars, stating that while Furiosa doesn't quite reach Fury Road's heights, it ranks as one of the best prequels ever made and proves Miller remains one of the most gifted and distinctive filmmakers of the last half-century. Roper highlighted the inventive action sequences and Taylor-Joy's committed performance. The Hollywood Reporter's chief film critic David Rooney praised the film's scope and ambition, noting that Miller orchestrates the chaos with meticulous precision and that the film works both as spectacle and character study. Rooney appreciated how the prequel added dimension to the Mad Max universe while standing as its own complete narrative. Owen Gleiberman of Variety described Furiosa as enthralling and praised its exploration of how its protagonist became a one-armed road warrior goddess. He noted that while the film features extraordinary action, it succeeds primarily as a character portrait, with Taylor-Joy delivering a performance of fierce, quiet intensity. Not all reviews reached the same heights of enthusiasm. Some critics felt the film's ambitions occasionally exceeded its grasp, or that its episodic structure created pacing issues. The AV Club's A.A. Dowd gave the film a B+, appreciating its craftsmanship while suggesting it couldn't replicate the lightning-in-a-bottle quality that made Fury Road a masterpiece. These more measured responses, while positive, acknowledge the challenge of following one of the century's most acclaimed action films. Several critics specifically praised Anya Taylor-Joy's performance, noting the difficulty of taking over an iconic role originated by Charlize Theron. Taylor-Joy's largely nonverbal performance in the first half of the film demonstrated impressive physical acting and emotional communication without extensive dialogue. Her ability to convey Furiosa's trauma, determination, and gradual transformation earned widespread admiration. Chris Hemsworth's villainous turn as Demendas received considerable attention. Critics praised his willingness to disappear into the grotesque character, subverting his typical heroic screen persona. Hemsworth imbued Demendas with unexpectedly gruesome moments of dark humor, genuine menace, and even occasional pathos. The performance showcased strange that surprised critics familiar with his Marvel work. Tom Burke's Praetorian Jack earned praise for bringing nobility and warmth to what could have been a standard mentor figure. The chemistry between Burke and Taylor-Joy in the film's middle section provided emotional grounding that elevated the action sequences. Critics noted that Jack's relationship with Furiosa added unexpected heart to the brutal wasteland narrative. Young Alila Brown received universal acclaim for her work as the child and teenage Furiosa. Critics marveled at her ability to hold the screen during the film's first act, carrying complex emotional beats with minimal dialogue. The seamless transition between Brown and Taylor-Joy, aided by the VFX facial work, impressed reviewers who appreciated the casting and technological achievement. The action sequences garnered extensive critical discussion. While some reviewers felt nothing could match Fury Road's sustained chase, most praised individual set pieces in Furiosa. The Stowaway to Nowhere sequence received particular attention, with critics celebrating its choreography, inventiveness, and the way it maintained Furiosa's perspective throughout. The climactic confrontation between Furiosa and Dementas was praised for its emotional weight and satisfying resolution. George Miller's direction earned reverential commentary across reviews. At 79 years old during filming, Miller demonstrated remarkable creative vitality, crafting another visually stunning and thematically rich entry in his signature franchise. Critics celebrated his willingness to embrace evolving technology while maintaining the practical filmmaking ethos that defined his career. His ability to blend old-school craftsmanship with cutting-edge digital techniques represented, for many critics, the ideal synthesis of traditional and contemporary filmmaking. The world-building received consistent praise. Critics appreciated how Furiosa expanded the Mad Max universe, finally visualizing Gastown and Bullet Farm while adding depth to the mythology. The 5-chapter structure allowed for epic scope while maintaining narrative clarity. Miller's attention to detail in costume design, vehicle construction, and cultural development of the various wasteland factions impressed reviewers who appreciated the lived-in quality of the world. Some critics analyzed the film's themes, noting its exploration of resilience, revenge, and the cycles of violence. Furiosa's journey from innocent child to hardened warrior to something approaching wisdom provided thematic richness beyond typical action fare. The film's meditation on what vengeance costs and whether it can truly be satisfying resonated with critics who appreciated blockbusters engaging with substantive ideas. The visual effects became a point of discussion, with some critics and audiences noting increased CGI compared to Fury Road. Most professional critics contextualize this, explaining that the different story requirements necessitated different approaches. Reviews generally praised how the effects served the storytelling rather than overwhelming it, though a minority felt certain sequences appeared overly digital. Comparisons to Fury Road dominated critical discourse, often to Furiosa's disadvantage though not severely so. Critics acknowledged the nearly impossible task of matching what many considered one of the greatest action films ever made. Most positioned Furiosa as an excellent film that would be celebrated more if it didn't follow an all-time masterpiece. This framing attempted to manage expectations while validating Furiosa's considerable achievements. Several critics addressed the question of whether Furiosa justified its existence as a prequel. The consensus largely affirmed that Miller had successfully made this origin story feel necessary rather than mercenary, by focusing on character psychology and emotional journey rather than simply explaining plot details. Furiosa earned its place in the canon. The film added dimension to the franchise rather than merely cashing in on name recognition. Awards prognostication began immediately upon release, with critics speculating about potential Oscar nominations for technical categories. Many predicted nominations for production design, costume design, sound, visual effects, and possibly film editing. Some critics position Furiosa as a potential Best Picture dark horse, citing Miller's previous success earning a Best Picture nomination for Fury Road. However, the box office disappointment was acknowledged as potentially limiting awards momentum. International critics broadly echoed their American counterparts, with particularly strong reviews coming from Australian critics who took pride in the production's local roots. European critics appreciated the film's operatic qualities and Miller's auteur status. Asian critics varied more widely in response, with some finding the wasteland aesthetic and extreme violence less appealing than Western critics did. The critical-commercial disconnect sparked its own discussion in reviews and think pieces. Critics struggled to explain why such a well-reviewed film failed to attract audiences. Some blamed marketing, others cited changing theatrical habits, and many simply acknowledged the mysterious alchemy that determines box office success. The situation highlighted how even excellent films can struggle in an increasingly challenging theatrical marketplace. The overwhelmingly positive critical response provided vindication for George Miller and the creative team, even as the box office disappointed. Critics positioned Furiosa as a film likely to grow in reputation over time, as audiences discover it through home media and streaming. Many predicted the film would be reassessed as an underappreciated gem, much as several box office disappointments have been critically rehabilitated over the years. The reviews also sparked broader discussions about the state of action filmmaking. Critics used Furiosa as an opportunity to lament the decline of practical effects and thoughtful blockbusters in favor of formulaic CGI-heavy tentpoles. Miller's approach of blending practical and digital effects in service of clear storytelling and emotional trauma was held up as a model for how big-budget action cinema could and should operate. Fan response, while more mixed than critical reaction, still leaned positive. Dedicated Mad Max fans generally embraced Furiosa, appreciating the expanded lore and Miller's continued commitment to the franchise. Online discussion revealed some disappointment with the increased visual effects and the different pacing compared to Fury Road's relentless momentum. However, fan communities largely defended the film against casual dismissal, arguing it deserved better box office performance. The critical acclaim combined with commercial disappointment created an unusual situation where Furiosa became both a critical darling and a cautionary tale. Industry observers cited it as evidence that quality alone cannot guarantee success, that franchises require careful management of audience expectations, and that action films face particular challenges in the streaming era when audiences question whether theatrical viewing justifies the expense. As 2024 progressed, Furiosa consistently appeared on critics' mid-year best-of lists. Publications including IndieWire, The Guardian, Rolling Stone, and numerous others position it among the year's finest films. This recognition helped cement Furiosa's reputation as an artistic success even as its financial performance remained problematic. The gap between critical and commercial reception became one of the year's most notable film industry stories. Year-end awards consideration would ultimately determine how Furiosa's legacy solidifies. Strong technical nominations from critics groups and guild organizations would validate the craftsmanship even without box office success. An Oscar nomination or two could help recoup some prestige and drive home media sales. Regardless of awards outcomes, the critical consensus established Furiosa as a significant work from one of cinema's master craftsmen, worthy of study and appreciation despite its commercial challenges.